Come and get me. Come and get me.
Be careful you don't fall.
It steals childhood and the mobility that we all know and love and come to remember in our own childhood. It steals that from these children.
Even actually before she was born, I had a feeling that something wasn't quite right.
É difícil aceitar. Você não aceita que é minha primeira filha.
Devastation. Foi bem comovente, porque eu não tinha ideia, né?
Essentially, FOP is a catastrophic sabotage of the body's skeletal system. People who have FOP eventually form a second skeleton.
And at the end, they are frozen in one position.
So the body's soft tissues turn into bone. This doesn't happen normally. It's sort of like a trapdoor in evolution is unmasked, where one organ system turns into another organ system.
It's a catastrophic disease.
Perfect. Well, that's fine, isn't it? It's not going anywhere.
It goes down a bit.
When you're expecting a child, you have all these hopes and dreams. She's been really unfortunate that her progression has been very rapid.
Right, are you ready?
Ready? I can let go.
I've let go.
And she's lost a lot of mobility, but she won't remember a lot of that mobility. That is the reality for her. She'll never remember being able to turn her head or be able to put her arm out to reach things.
Throw it to Mummy. Good girl.
She had funny looking toes. So immediately I thought, oh, there's something not right. So they took her away, brought her back and said, it's something genetic that's made her toes like that. They diagnosed it as congenital bunions and sent me on my way.
Smiling at Daddy.
So yeah, I just basically went back to the internet and looked up congenital bunions and nothing came up. Eventually I put malformed big toes and there was FOP. I just knew straight away.
Yeah, you're enjoying that? Yeah.
Everybody in the world who has FOP, the toe is abnormal in some ways. It's malformed. The overactive gene in FOP causes the joints not to form properly.
In the time that we waited for that appointment, she had these funny lumps come up on her head. So behind her ear, and then got bigger and bigger. They were the size of probably an orange at one point, and they moved around her head, different lumps came up. Come on then, you can do it. It was awful. I mean, I was in pieces. Not only did I have a newborn baby, you know, she was 6 weeks old by this point. No one was listening to me, and I knew. Even her father didn't necessarily, I don't think he wanted to believe. He was kind of a bit head in the sand about it all. But we saw this professor. He looked at her toes, he asked her to move her neck. Yeah. And he said, oh, yeah, I don't think it is FOP. You know, at the time I was so desperate to hear it's not FOP. As we went to walk out, he said, wait a minute, let's just get her some blood tests just in case.
E foi ao longo de 8 anos, né? Essa luta aí, nossa. De hospital em hospital, de diagnóstico errado, de tratamentos que não eram necessários.
Eu sofri coisas que não tinha necessidade nenhuma. E hoje com a FOP, mesmo tendo as dificuldades, eu não sofro nem a metade do que eu sofria, do que eu sofri no passado com todos os tratamentos, com todas as medicações. Eu não sofro nem a metade hoje. Acho que o mundo enxergaria de outra forma as pessoas que têm deficiência física.
She is also someone that wants to teach people that the differences are something that is really something to be amazed of, to be proud of, and not something to be ashamed.
As pessoas deveriam ter mais pessoas assim em novelas, em filmes, propagandas, em comerciais.
Dedos do pé eram tortos e as pernas eram viradas. Era bem virada. Então ela passou quase 1 ano com esse gesso.
And what is horrible about this disease is that it's so rare that most doctors don't recognize FOP. And this is the most important thing, because doctors may want to do something good to these patients, but they don't know that instead of doing a good thing, they are making FOP worse. If you see those lumps and bumps, you will try to understand. Any doctor is going to try to take out a piece of tissue to understand what's going on. And a biopsy can make the situation worse.
Então eles fizeram biópsia e foi constatado que ela tinha um tumor benigno agressivo. E aí começou todo aquele sofrimento, né?
Natal, Ano Novo, aniversário, Páscoa, nenhuma data eu comemorava em nada, assim. Eu sempre fiquei no hospital tomando medicamento, enquanto o mundo inteiro vivia, eu só ficava tomando medicamento, passando muito mal.
Estava bem debilitada e passava muito mal. Aí naquele dia eu conversei com Deus. E eu falei, olha, se minha filha tiver que ir embora, que seja de casa. Aí eu tirei, não voltei mais. Não foi fácil, não é, mas a gente tem que seguir, né?
We all deal with grieving the lives of our children, what we thought that they were meant to be.
It's interesting being a kid because you don't really learn to feel bad for yourself until someone else feels bad for you.
There was so little known about FOP, it was basically go home. There's nothing we can do. So kind of coping then and deciding how we were going to handle it, I think we were just putting one foot in front of the other and trying not to transfer all our fear and sadness over to them, which is hard, which is really hard.
And I was very lucky that my parents managed that part of FOP very well. They explained it to my brother and I.
We just told both the boys that Ian had something that was unusual, and that really it just meant that how he was a little tall and strong and a little stiff like a tin soldier, he was going to become more like a tin soldier. He was going to be strong and a warrior, and that he was just going to get more like that.
And my brother's response to that explanation was that he asked if I was going to die. And my response was if I could still eat candy.
I think we both kind of took a big sigh of relief, and we just went, we're going to be okay. We'll just take this one day at a time.
What's the best thing you think is going to be about being 7 years old?
Being older than other kids.
You know, I was focused on not necessarily how I was going to be different, but how I was going to be the same.
And I remember my mom saying to me, you know, you've just got to pick yourself up and put your bootstraps on. And it's like, okay, that's what I'll do.
That's a magical album,
Famous.
So I barely remember those days in detail, but I remember the feeling of those days significantly. 83 people in the whole world. There weren't movies, there weren't videos, there's no internet. It was a different time.
People did not. Many people were skeptics in what we were doing. They would say things such as, why are you working on such a rare disease? You should work on a common condition like osteoporosis or arthritis.
At the time, it was suspected that FOP is caused by a genetic mutation, but there were very few families that indicated inheritance, and so that was far from certain. Literally nothing was known about the disease.
I felt very strongly from the time I was a medical student that rare diseases often give you a glimpse into the common problems of life. The key to the closet is the key to the kingdom. The key to the rare diseases is the key to the common ones.
CNN medical correspondent Andrew Holt has a report for us.
Carol Orzo likes to look her best, but for her, the routine job of putting on makeup requires some adaptation because her body's almost frozen by a shell of bone.
My very first patient who had FOP was Carol Orzo. I met Carol in 1984.
And I got all swollen, and different things started happening that I didn't know what was happening.
I was very taken by her. I was very taken by her enthusiasm with life, her spirit. Her love of life was vibrant. Her ability to see tomorrow and look forward to tomorrow was vibrant, despite the fact that she couldn't move almost any joint in her body.
She was a feisty advocate for FOP before we even knew what being an advocate was about.
Brilliantly, she would come to the University of Pennsylvania and educate physicians. She would implore the physicians to realize that although they're going to learn about the genetics and the molecules that cause these different diseases, that there is a human being behind each of them. Put your chin down to your chest and look up at the ceiling as far as you can. And without turning your body, can you look towards the door? And can you look towards me? Good. And how about bending your down to one shoulder And here to the other. Okay. And can you open your mouth all the way? Hey, that's great. And how about this? Oh, you can close that now. And that, can you do this? Great. All as much as you can.
They truly care. You know, Dr. Kaplan, Dr. Shore, other people, they know Joe by name.
There we see the famous toes of Joe. And the one thing that we notice is that the toe is missing that joint right in there. So it bends here, but it doesn't bend here like the thumb. You know, like, can you bend? Yeah.
These are these amazing world-renowned doctors and scientists. They have become our family.
So there's extra bone there, there's extra bone there, there's extra bone there, and there's some extra bone there, and some extra bone there. But you're doing very, very well. You play the cello?
Electric cello, actually.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you make a recording so I can hear it?
When you have a child that's handed a rare disease like this, is, you know, something you really do look inward. And, you know, we determined a long time ago that Joe would not be defined by FOP. He's 11 years old, he's in 6th grade. He's about going to school and his schoolwork and his friends, and we deal with FOP when we need to.
O Bruno, então, o dia a dia dele é o campo, é ficar lá jogando bola. Mas como aqui a gente mora assim, a gente não tem um quintal, então a vida dele, das crianças todas, é ficar ali brincando.
É difícil eu fazer gol, porque às vezes ele não toca. E aí quando eu pego a bola, eu tenho que tocar pra ele.
FOP doesn't spontaneously get better, it only gets worse.
Eles podem ir para lugar, eu não posso. Eles podem brincar em outro lugar, mas eu não posso. Eles podem correr atrás de pipa, eu não posso.
It's a mutation in the gene. It's a very tiny little mutation that makes all this mess.
Eu me sinto mal.
Eu tento sentir o que ele sente, né? Pra gente que é mãe é difícil. Porque eu penso, por que não comigo?
One mother said to me, today is the best day my child is going to have. It's unpredictable how bad it will become and how soon it will become bad. You can see on this one, Joe, where it's a little bit more pointy. And an x-ray, if we had an x-ray of this, it would show bone in that area. This one was a new flare-up that just occurred. Clearly, one of the commonalities is that when FOP flares up, it can be very painful. This is a inflammation of a muscle, inflammation of a tendon, inflammation of a ligament, inflammation of other soft tissues in the body.
When we see a patient that has a swelling, like on their back, this is a normal piece of muscle, right? But there's a lot of infiltration in there. And that's why you see the tissue so angry and red, right? It's swollen because these cells, they're trying to fight an infection. And as it progresses, right, we can kind of see that more and more of these cells come in till it basically destroys the tissue and makes it fibrotic, which is here, right? And then as these cells change, they change basically into cartilage and ultimately go to bone. If we just took a snapshot at the beginning and the end, right, we would just think that this was a normal thing. It was always there. But when we see the progression, we can see how this changes and how explosively it changes.
Once the flare-up finishes, the swelling goes down and a new piece of bone is left. And the swelling goes down, and a piece of bone is left. And that bone is just like every other bone in your body. It's normal bone. It's just in the wrong place. When the swelling goes away, the pain often diminishes, and people with FOP are able to resume their life, but at a different level. They've often lost movement of a joint. They can't do things that they could do before. And you can see that this bone, this is old bone. This has been there for a long time. It's a mature bone, but this is the bone that resulted from the new flare-up and was responsible for limiting the movement of your elbow.
The problem with this whole progression is we can't go backwards. This only runs forward. There's no way we can go yet from bone back.
Whatever time I see these children, whether they're 2 years or 5 years or 7 or 10 or 12 years of age, it's the best day they're going to ever have. The muscles and the connective tissues are very sensitive to injury. You can see that here. This is normal bone, but it's in the wrong place. It's as if the body gets a signal to make too much extra bone.
And that's probably why I can't put my right arm behind my back.
That's correct.
What we find in FOP is that those cells that normally repair and replace skeletal muscle are receiving incorrect signals, and they think that they should be forming cartilage and bone. And so as a result, we have ectopic or extraskeletal bone forming in soft tissues like skeletal muscle.
The bone is normal, it just shouldn't be there. It's just in the wrong place at the wrong time and can cause them to lose movement in a joint permanently for the rest of their life. Good job. Good job. An example of how too much of a good thing can be very, very bad.
FOP is not malicious. It's not trying to screw me up. It's how my body works, and it's trying to help. It just doesn't know how to help, and it helps in the wrong ways. You know, I think a lot of FOP, unfortunately, is like fear and the expectation of something happening. You know, if I look back on all my major flare-ups, in my head, I jumped down the rabbit hole. I said, oh my God, this is gonna happen, and then this is gonna happen, and then I'm gonna lose this, and then I can't do that anymore, and I'm fucked. And it's like, then that all would happen. And in hindsight, I kind of look back and be like, that's kind of what I put energy into. You know, my body doesn't have, you know, deductive reasoning or thinking or whatever. It just goes, you know, if I say, oh my God, my hip's gonna turn to bone, and then I'm gonna lose movement, and I can't do this, and blah, blah, blah. My body just goes, oh, you wanna turn your hip to bone? We can do that. And that was like, you're not running, you're not playing sports, you're not going to the gym, you're not doing any of this stuff. And it was like, holy shit, like that's who I am. But when you're 12, it's like little things feel like your identity.
And so early on, we kind of separated what was physical and what was emotional. And I wanted to help my child be the most emotionally intelligent person and help him with that, because I felt that it was a life skill. It was going to be a life skill when his body kind of let him down.
I try to maintain my mental independence more than my physical independence. You know, I can walk without help, but I choose to have somebody's hand there, because if I fell or something happened, and you said, why'd you fall? And I said, oh, because I didn't have your hand. You'd say, idiot, like, just ask for my hand. And so it's kind of, you know, is the juice worth the squeeze?
As I'm getting older and as FOP is progressing, I don't take walking for granted, using my right arm, and being able to open my jaw. And those are the three things that really I have left that I can use.
She gets stressed, does her hair, she does a little makeup. Her caregiver puts her in that wheelchair, and she is off and going on her own, everything New York.
I started an Instagram account that goes through New York and looks at different places that are wheelchair accessible, either restaurants, coffee shops, or other stores, and I'll document it with pictures and text. And
concrete jungle on 4 wheels.
So travelers and tourists of New York know that if they have a disability or are handicapped in any way, that they can still go to these delicious restaurants.
I can't even imagine how many miles Whitney has done on her wheelchair, independently.
I have to take every day as it comes and really appreciate the things I do have. FOP is all about adaptation, and with the unknown progression, every day is a new opportunity to learn new tools on different ways to make my life more independent.
Come on. Hey. I'm kind of an entrepreneur by heart, so I like wearing a bunch of different hats. Right now I spend the majority of my time developing my app. So basically, you can link a message or a reminder to a location. So when I get to the grocery store, text me my grocery list.
To remember the things you don't want to forget, no matter when you get there. Yeah Buddy simplifies your life.
Or when I get to this airport, send messages to my family that says, hey, I just got to the airport. And it's all automated, so it basically takes out the need for all of us to remember all of those little interactions that often don't happen just because we're busy.
I don't go throughout my days thinking that I have FOP, and when scary moments happen, that's when you get slapped in the face. That's the scary thing about FOP, is that sometimes are no warning signs because no one really understands what we go through.
So it's like living with a terrorist in the house. You never know when that terror is going to strike again. It could be tomorrow, it could be a month from now, it could be a year from now, it could be 5 years from now, but you know that something is going to happen.
And I really don't know what would happen if I lost the ability to walk.
Looking at an adult with FOP is like going to the World Trade Center. It's a memorial to something that happened. It's a memorial to the people that suffered and died there. And one can look at that site and say, intellectually, a terrible terrorist attack occurred here.
Sim, eu tenho um tio que mora aqui atrás, né? Aqui nessa casa. Eu ligo para ele vem, né? A vizinha também me ajuda, né? O filho dela quando assim que eu preciso ir no mercado, como que vocês viram, né? Eu preciso de ajuda para colocar o tênis, né? A meia. Aí eu ligo para ela e ela manda o filho dela vir aqui e calça e tudo o resto eu vou sozinho.
Pode ser grande? É melhor.
Pega para mim.
He has such a wonderful big heart, and he lives alone.
Você acaba se adaptando. Eu sou muito bom na cozinha, né? Macarrão. Costumam brincar que é a especialidade da casa. A dona de casa, né? Tem sempre seus afazeres, sempre aquela mesma coisa, né? Mesma coisa. O pessoal não...
He is passionate by soccer, and sometimes he won't come to my office, but he's going to watch a match.
Claro que a gente pergunta, por que eu, né? Mas a gente não sabe, só Deus que sabe. O Deus tem um propósito na nossa vida, então a gente tem que seguir de uma maneira que a gente se adapta e a gente acaba ensinando outras pessoas a viver também, né?
Everybody with FOP suffers the same, whether they're from a big city or a rural area, and their culture may determine how they cope with their FOP.
In Africa, to our knowledge, only 17 patients have been diagnosed. 14 of those are here, 2 are in Kenya and 1's in Morocco. And so to have 2 patients who live pretty much within 15, 20 minutes of each other in a township in the Cape is quite extraordinary.
I'm over 53 years old now. In a way, I would say I'm lucky to be at this age and then having FOP. There are stigmas. We as Black people, we always attach the condition with a person as if that person is bewitched. Some people from the community will become scared to be near you.
One of our patients up in Johannesburg, every time she needs to travel to hospital, has to rent an entire taxi for herself because the taxi drivers refuse to take her because they think whatever she's got is contagious and no one will ride with her. There's a double burden that's being carried. I mean, life is hard when you've got FOP. Life is hard when you're living in an environment like that with constraints on resources, personal freedom, safety. So to have those 2 things combined, I think, is a double injustice. And it's hard for people to imagine what life is really like. It's hard for me to imagine it properly, to be honest.
This is unbearable, you know, especially for people like myself. The bathroom, as you see, is quite a distance from the main house. The bathroom should be made closer to my house so that I can minimize any injury when I'm walking this distance. I've asked the local authorities before to organize the toilet closer to my house, but it seems to be falling on deaf ears.
I don't know if it's a good idea to come there. So, you know, these people, when they do all those things,
Okay.
I don't think it's safe to come with equipment and all that.
So have there been shootings the past few days?
There were shootings from Monday and yesterday.
Is it okay if I just discuss with police and security and then let you know?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll have to see. Hey, I'm a bit nervous about that. Yeah, it's not safe out there, so.
New Crossroads is a very nice place, and the people are so friendly. We hardly got violence. It can happen sometimes. The past few days, they've been shooting like 2 days in a row. Here in my house, I live with my husband and my 2 children, my son and my daughter, Anisipo. And Anisipo, she's the one who's got FOP.
Like I can't raise up my hands, and I can't take something that I high. Can play rope, can play soccer ball.
She used to play with the other children, and I was very worried. She can fall, she can get hurt, but you tell her, don't jump too much, don't run too much. She couldn't care less about that. She will do whatever she wants to do.
It gave me such deep respect for the parents of children with FOP who can bear that without their hearts breaking at the thought that they might injure themselves, but who recognize that their children have to just be normal children.
A Jéssica, ela me deu muito trabalho na adolescência. Me surpreendia a cada dia. Eu falava que ela ia me matar do coração a qualquer hora. Porque cada vez que ela saía e voltava era uma surpresa diferente. Ela já colocou dread no cabelo, já colocou rastafari, já fez moicano, já pintou de azul, de rosa. Porque ela saía, quando voltava, já voltava tatuada.
Olha essas tatuagens, risquei o corpo todo.
Ela nem me comunicava.
I went through a lot with her. I went to Red Cross. They didn't know what it is. They take her to oncology to find out. They made a biopsy.
And of course, this is when FOP really wakes up and starts to express itself most fully when tissue is damaged and there's a need to replace that tissue. The tissue tends to be replaced with bone rather than muscle.
When they made the biopsy, the lumps started to come at the back and the arms started to freeze.
Actually, this way. And do you think they're becoming bigger? The same lumps becoming bigger?
No, it's the same.
Okay. Of course, I'd never seen anything like this. When I looked this up, I found a paper and phoned up Dr. Kaplan in America and asked him, so I think I've got a patient with, how will I be sure? And he said to me, so just look at the toes. And once that was done, it became the simplest diagnosis in the world. Looking at the toes, looking at the lumps. And now that I've been looking after a number of patients and I've seen hundreds of patients at international meetings and so on, you make the diagnosis across the street.
I asked, is there anything to prevent this situation? So he told me, not yet. FOP doesn't have a cure right now.
We're used to, as doctors, making a diagnosis and then applying the treatment that's available. And here it was really jarring to say, well, there's no treatment and this is going to be the outcome.
When he told me that, my heart was very sore.
She was nearly 3 months at the point that I got a phone call from the doctor. I was home on my own. My little baby who, I was just struggling. He gave me the diagnosis and that was it. We knew that things would never be the same.
Baby Isla, she's such a happy, energetic little girl.
Taking it off.
The main aim of the charity when we first started out was to fund research at the University of Oxford. Since then it's grown beyond the research into also supporting FOP families.
A treatment for us would mean that Isla gets to continue her life with the mobility that we all take for granted and that she can live without the pain that this terrible disease causes.
Do you want to go in? Come on then.
We started a UK FOP conference, which provides that hope to the families again, also provides them access to the international doctors.
We got to meet Dr. Kaplan, we got to hear from him and get that advice from the world's best.
Isla, we're going to go to the park.
The biggest thing that I remember is him saying, let her be a child.
We're going to get Mummy! Ah!
And I really took that on and thought, yeah, okay. The hardest thing I think is when she lost elbow movement in both arms. I never realised until it happened how big that was going to be.
What's that noise?
The biggest worry now is if she falls, she cannot catch her fall at all. I now know that that's not stopping my daughter. She is a determined little girl and she will do whatever she wants.
And I haven't tried this before. I can hula hoop.
She she's going to have a fulfilled life. It might not be how it could have been if she didn't have FOP, but she will make sure that she does all the things that she wants to do.
Mommy, I think I might have some mud on my knee.
He's becoming quite active. Just turned 11 this month. Touch wood, for whatever reason, he's pretty much unimpacted by FOP. So he's started doing baseball and football, soccer. All the kind of things you wouldn't really expect. He feels invincible, which is a bit of a concern for us, but we've taken the position that we don't know what's around the corner, so we'll let him do as much as he can now, while he can. I don't remember much about the day. The only thing I do clearly remember is phoning my dad back, and that's the only time I've actually broken down about it. And it was 30 seconds a minute. I thought, right, no, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to get on. We're going to figure this out. We're going to do something, make a difference. We're going to, you know. We're not ones to sit and do nothing, so we were very quick to get involved initially just in that, supporting the research that was going on, but then getting involved in the bigger picture.
We're working on research, we're working on a biobank, we're working on an FOP registry, drug development forums. Everything we're doing is bringing a medicine and a cure closer and closer. So it's huge. It's not just for my son. It's for everybody's children. We're all depending on it.
Nobody ever talked about rare diseases then. And every door I kind of opened seemed to kind of get slammed in my face. We just did the chicken barbecues. We kind of started the very grassroots fundraising effort.
It was hard, it was frustrating that it was so slow, but I knew the answer was there.
I remember thinking, if I just worked really hard and I raised as much money as I could, that when Ian was 15, 10 years, that there just had to be a treatment. And, 10 years we didn't even have the gene discovery.
Once we started identifying families where we could see inheritance of FOP from parents to children, it was clear that this was a genetic mutation, and it was just a matter of time before we were going to find it. So I never felt that we weren't going to get to the answer, but didn't know how long it was going to take.
It's sort of like the Sphinx. It poses questions, the riddles. I would look at Harry's skeleton and see things, and I would question, how is this possible? What causes FOP? How does this happen? Why does it happen in this way? Dr. Shore and I would come here, look at the skeleton, and we would take these questions back to the laboratory and dissect them down to the genetic and molecular level and begin to find answers.
I find that very fitting that she would just love that idea that she's going to educate generations to come.
That FOP doesn't just occur randomly, but occurs in certain patterns. And the way the second skeleton forms is similar to the pattern by which the first skeleton forms. This told us that FOP does not just randomly affect different tissues in the body, but progresses in certain patterns. It's those patterns that gave us a very important clue as to what the gene is.
Probably the most important step was identifying families where we could see that FOP is being inherited from a parent to the child. That confirmed that FOP is a genetic disease and has a genetic basis. And the same mutation that we see in almost everybody with FOP.
Classic.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly
Yeah.
the same. As we began to look at more and more people who had FOP, we started seeing the same change in the same gene again and again.
It's just one letter out of 6 billion in the DNA in our entire body is enough to cause FOP.
We start as a single cell, and that cell has to replicate itself and expand into the billions of cells that we have in our body. Mistakes get made, but our cells are amazing in that they actually survey the DNA that gets replicated, and they look for mistakes and can repair. But they're not 100% foolproof in the repair mechanism, and mistakes slip by. And we think that that's where the DNA change from most people who have FOP comes from. It's just something that happens in lots of cells all the time, and this mistake just slipped by.
And my colleagues in the laboratory took that one letter out of that misspelled word and were able to create a mouse that has FOP.
So we put the FOP mutation into a mouse and crossed our fingers.
Here, you see the toe is shortened. It's malformed, exactly like in patients in FOP.
We noticed right away. I mean, the feet were the first things that we looked at. And we've been extremely lucky that the mouse essentially replicates and mimics almost every feature that we see in someone who has FOP.
This is a mouse skeleton showing heterotopic ossification born progressively over time after birth.
We can see that the process of bone formation was the same as what was happening in people.
We are able to use those mice to test various possibilities to treat FOP, to stop the renegade bone formation.
We worked very close with research and the researchers. It was really a family. We felt very much part of every success that came. So when the gene discovery came, it was really big.
FOP went from the backwaters of medicine to the mainstream.
The FOP community kind of went from hopeless to hopeful, because you had, we don't understand it, there's nothing to do, just wait, which is like a monster under your bed, right? And then with that gene, it was like, okay, we know what to start working with.
There's no event that has sent out more hope around the world, that has inspired more people to work on FOP than the discovery of the FOP gene.
And it's still, that's a starting line, not a finish line.
What we do here is we try and look at the protein that's responsible for FOP. Now, to look at it, we tend to need to isolate it. So we need to make lots of copies of it, purify lots of copies of it, and then do lots of experiments on it.
And so we set about on a long journey screening different drug molecules that might bind to the FOP protein. And our aim is really just to switch the FOP protein off.
So if you imagine that the protein is a lock, we want a key that will fit in it very precisely. We don't want a skeleton key. We don't want something that will open or switch off any other proteins. We only want to target the one protein that's gone wrong.
We have a clear genetic driver. We have a clear protein that's involved, that's very druggable. And actually we can interfere with the process in multiple stages. So different drug companies could take different approaches, but all could be successful.
What's exciting is that suddenly there are a number of companies that have all committed themselves. I'm hopeful that between us, we'll come up with one or more drugs that will be safe and effective.
well. It's a magnificently dynamic time.
It's certainly, the most exciting time since I've been diagnosed.
And the fact that there's such a clear cause, a small change in one protein, and that can be targeted with a very precise medicine, really makes me very hopeful that one can overcome the disease.
The protein that causes FOP is like a faucet. That faucet should be off normally. When the body wants to create bone, that faucet is turned on. The water comes out of the faucet, and that's a signal for the body to create bone. In FOP, that faucet is broken.
The question is there a way to design a drug that will inhibit that mutation? So we can think of the mutation as a light switch that has got stuck on. So the light is on when it should no longer be on. So we need to develop a drug that firstly is going to be potent. It's going to be able to turn off the light switch that we want. And then secondly, it's got to be specific, that it's only turning off that light switch and not affecting any of the other light switches that are associated with other enzymes that are related to it.
We have identified experimental medicine that can actually tightly bind this uncontrolled protein, this activated protein, and stop that uncontrolled activity. It inhibits it. So this is work that has been done in the lab, obviously, and it needs to be confirmed in patients. We are very excited, and we can't wait to see how our trials will pan out.
Looking at a puzzle presented to us by human genetic diversity and wondering whether we can solve that puzzle. We go where the biology takes us. I would say we're very lucky that we ended up where we ended up with an interesting discovery that I think has potential.
One of the drug companies is developing a drug that works on the handles, on the immune system, on the hormones that turn on that faucet so the faucet doesn't explode with water.
We have shown that using a mouse model and you treat it with an anti-activin antibody, that has a curative effect. The mice do not get FOP.
There's still an awful lot we need to learn, but right now there's a tremendous amount of hope.
It feels like this ball of energy that, I've waited a long time for it to be like this.
It was really my sister, Chrissy, when Josh was diagnosed. It was kind of her mission. I have to do something. There needs to be something that I can do that can help Josh and help us find medicine, help us find a cure.
We're here to move the heavy stuff.
We're going back this way. In the beginning, we were all kind of wanting to do something, but nobody knew what really to do. So my dad and I thought, let's go with the bingo. And the very first year, we had 635 people show up to play bingo. Mom and pop grown, small town in America, absolutely.
Freaking this way.
I never thought, after the first year or two that we'd get that far, and she just keeps beating it every year, so I just sit back and do what I'm told.
Everybody knows this is the weekend every year. They don't make plans. They get mad at family members if they do make plans. I get all emotional. You can't fathom that people come back year after year.
How's it sound back there?
There's like 1,600 people attend. There's like over 100 baskets. All the prizes are money for like the bingo games.
Every year we say, we are never gonna make as much as we made last year, never. And every year we beat it.
you.
And you're gonna press down. Down.
Good job. The goal today is to reach $1 million. It's amazing to all come together for this cause.
When they have events like this that you can take part in and you see how big something like this is, you realize that you're not alone.
Today is more than a fundraiser for us. Like AJ woke up this morning and today he's going to see his FOP family.
I'll play with my friends while I'm in bingo.
Who are your friends at bingo?
Joey, Josh. And there's also Star Wars people that they dress up and they come to the bingo.
I think you see every stage of FOP. I think that's what kind of set the bar for us on our first event that we went to.
There's people in wheelchairs and there's people walking and there's people who can, and it's a little bit of everything.
Got you a little bit prepared, and it got him a little bit more prepared where he was able to see it, but know that these are still active, functioning individuals that are still doing everyday activities. There's still no limits to what he can do. He'll still get around, he'll still be able to talk, function, have friends, and still play around and goof around and still be a kid. It's your fast one, that's what you're
Yeah. Skating? No, it's we're on sleds.
You're on sleds, but you're on sleds on ice.
Yes.
That's incredible. I couldn't do that.
I like play hockey and I like to play baseball.
He's very competitive. He likes to win.
Yes, I'm competitive in hockey.
And what does it make you feel like when you win, buddy?
Happy.
You tell us all about it.
Yes.
All day.
Not all day.
Sometimes.
Yes, sometimes a day.
He's taught us to not be sad and that he can have the best life he can, and he is.
Gets harder and harder. Now that he's in a wheelchair, we just do what we can.
Chicken boom boom, chicken boom.
Fishing. I like to go fishing.
That's what I tell Josh when we go fishing. You can still go. We can still catch big fish. You just have to do it a little different than everybody else.
He usually casts, and I reel the fish in. We went on a trip, and we caught like 3 shark. My dad helped me reel it in. I was excited.
I'm very proud of how strong Joshua is. We always say that he handles things way better than we would have.
I told him I want to be him when I grow up.
Yes.
Josh is like family to us, to everybody. It's a big part of all of our lives, Josh is.
The mirror is just a free space.
Some of them don't even know Joshua. They don't know anybody affected with the disease, and for them to come out and offer up their money in their pocket to help our cause is just insane.
We have families from all over donate baked goods. And it's 100% profit, if you will, but 100% love for Josh and the other patients.
Without your help, without your support, these discoveries in the laboratory wouldn't be possible, and we wouldn't be able to translate it as we're doing now to clinical trials. And we hope to God that someday soon we'll have not one, but many approved drugs for FOP. We're not there yet. And so we thank you very much, and we hope you keep coming back until we are there.
We started this hoping to make about $2,000 having a bingo, and to know that now we've hit $1 million for research. It's just, you're beyond words.
Então, eu sei pouco, né? A doutora Patrícia me fala, né? Ela fala que está tendo mais experiência, acho que fora, né, do Brasil, está tendo eficaz, né? Aí o que ela falou para mim, né, que esse remédio ele vem para estabilizar. O dia que eu tô hoje, eu paro, né?
Então agora a gente está indo para o encontro, né? As minhas expectativas são as melhores possíveis. A gente vai ter bastante resposta para o que a gente precisa, né? Precisa saber.
Quando tiver muito calor, eu vou na piscina.
Olá!
Oi!
Chegamos.
Como?
Mostra o quarto aí pra gente.
Essa é a janela. Esse é o banheiro. Esse é meu quarto. Minha mãe não quer me levar na piscina. Tá frio? Não, pelo menos vou ver como que é.
Children, and then a difference barometer active in A is effective in preventing heterotopic.
The bottom on your left is Cape Town, and then it's
a estrelinha da Disney.
Pode, né, minha filha? Logo do lado?
Nossa, que coisa! Não,
você percebe, hein?
Tudo bom?
Tô viva.
Tá viva?
Eu tô. Você vai me dar o seu?
Nunca.
Ah.
Assim.
We're bringing families together, trying to give them as much information as we can. For everything, for awareness, for family services. We're bringing the top doctors together and letting the families meet them.
Hi. So we see heterotopic bone here and here and here. There's no new flare-ups. These are all old bone.
Isso é tudo osso velho.
Né? As complicações que a doença traz, né? Então, meu maior medo hoje é uma parada respiratória, uma parada cardíaca, que eu sei que existe esse risco.
There are several physical activities that are very beneficial for your health. One of them is singing. These are activities that exercise the diaphragm, which is the major muscle for breathing.
Ah, mas isso eu não tenho problema. Eu já virei quase uma cantora.
No problem there. She's a top singer.
Meu maior medo de perder minha filha, né?
When I go to Brazil, I saw so many children with FOP, and before I thought it was me only with FOP.
For my son, I know that the difference to be with kids who are like him is so comforting. And I've noticed this with a lot of new families that I meet, that the children need to know they're okay, and they need to feel they have support, and they need to connect with other children.
Eu converso com ele no dia que a gente estava vindo, eu perguntei para ele, Bruno, você viu? Não é só você que é assim. E ele falou, mas tem uns que não parece. Eu falei, cada um desenvolve de um jeito.
Eu gostei, eu fiz um amigo. Eu brinquei com ele.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Clarissa Desjardins, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning with you.
My journey with FOP started 5 years ago. I had never heard of this disease, but I read a Nature Medicine paper showing that a drug that Roche Pharmaceuticals had abandoned could prevent new bone formation in this disease in animal models. Not only was I impressed by the scientific observations, I was also compelled as a mother by the tragedy that this disease presents. So I felt very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time to start a company to fund clinical trials. Now we do have evidence to go beyond hope, and so we're very much looking forward to the possibility of being able to provide the first treatment for FOP.
It's a story of true entrepreneurs, true scientists, people with a passion to help patients that are otherwise underserved. And a medicine like palovarotene has been proven to be able to help these patients significantly live a much more normal life. It's a great story, and we're happy to be part of it and to take palovarotene and really globalize it, because a smaller company can only do so much.
Minhas esperanças foi renovada, né? Porque tem esses medicamentos em desenvolvimento. Eu tô com bastante expectativa.
I want this condition to be the last that reaches this level, my level, you know. I'm worried about the growing kids.
This is a disease that is won and lost during childhood. So if and when effective treatments are available, treating a child should change the course of their disease such that they can preserve mobility for much longer than we've been able to imagine. And that's our hope and that's our dream. As I've come to know the patients, not only do I admire them, because I think they teach us the best of what humanity has to offer, but they provided a mission, a real mission in my life.
Para mim, talvez não possa resolver muita coisa, mas vai ajudar muito aos pequenos que estão chegando agora, estão começando agora aqui.
I think we're pretty close to a treatment. Not a cure, but I think we're very close to a treatment.
It's a completely different future to the one that we were introduced to, not only for my child, but for all the children, all the families.
Now we see the light. It's just about how close we can get to it, how fast.
I've seen a lot of children grow up and become wonderful people. Every day, I wish we could do more faster and find something that will really make a difference for them.
Personally, I've never lived my life in relation to a treatment or a cure, because for me, I would be basing my happiness or whatever on something that didn't exist yet.
You can pull it. Good. I will live forever with a sadness that it wasn't in time to help my son. I think my son is at peace about that. He's really at peace about it.
FOP is so complicated that I don't think there's one thing that's gonna solve it. And if you go, oh, well, I'll be happy when, then it just means you're not happy until that happens. And that's a really brutal thing to kind of base your life on.
You know, if I could, I would call every pharmaceutical company and say, come on, hurry up. So it weighs on our shoulders because every flare-up can be a movement lost.
There are times when I look at myself in the mirror and I want to cry because I'm frustrated that we're not there yet.
In our offices, we have a wall where we have pictures of patients, and above it, it says, "Go fast, patients are waiting."
Unfortunately, drug development doesn't proceed that way. We don't have a magic wand where you can go plink.
Recently, we had a visit to Blueprint Medicines by a little girl with FOP, and so that really drove home this urgency, knowing that and looking into the eyes of this little girl.
We have patients that are desperate. Everybody wants to be in a clinical trial. And the patients that you have in one clinical trial, if you want to start another clinical trial, these ones cannot participate. And our community is small. So in the future, we won't have enough patients for the trials. And this is another reason why we want to inform and try to find more and more FOP patients.
I never thought that I would be living in a world where I could even be participating in a trial because FOP is so rare.
The live auction, bidding, and then Bill said, "Do you think they would do FOP?" So I'm like, "I don't know." And he goes, "Well, you better crawl to the next table and ask the director if we put a bid on it, could we use it to raise awareness for FOP?" And they were like, "Absolutely."
So we're going to the marquee in Times Square that is the center of New York, and there's actually a billboard of me and my dog Hope, and it was just really exciting to really show that my family and I are still very active in fundraising and raising awareness, which is so important, especially with how rare the disease is. And it was pretty overwhelming, just like seeing yourself like on this like big billboard.
And, you know, whatever clever things we can do to spread the word, that's what we want to do.
I don't honestly know if there will be enough people in the world to try all these different combinations to determine if these potential drugs are useful for FOP. That would be a tragedy.
For me, it's a tragedy for those people, not because there's the potential of a cure one day, but because the tremendous potential to do harm. I know about 2 patients in Kenya, 1 in Morocco, and 1 patient in Uganda that we saw a video clip of, a very distressing YouTube clip of a child with very obvious FOP in a very rural village in Uganda, but who passed away by the time we got a hold of the family. And other than that, we don't know about anyone else, and we just don't know where they are.
You know, I feel very, very sorry for those parents because they don't know what it is. They sitting with the child, look at the child suffering.
It's heartbreaking to think that if these people could just know what they have, they could prevent so much harm being done to them in the, with the best of intentions. But for instance, the girl that was on the YouTube video in Uganda, when we spoke to the family eventually, there were stories of people trying to reposition her limbs and to break some of the bony pieces that were causing difficulty with movement. So that potential for harm, that for me is the most devastating thing about not knowing where the patients are.
It's a very hard sort of thing, because I know from me, it's a very hard sort of thing to see a child suffer like that, and you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go. Whenever you go, the doctors say, we don't know what is this. It's a very, very suffering thing.
I personally find it a call to action that is undeniable. And I know that if I was one of those mothers with a child, I sure would want someone somewhere to care enough to search. It's just the right thing to do all over the world. It's the right thing to do. It's time.
It is 24 minutes after 4 o'clock in Africa. I'm here joined by Ambassador Noni and Dr. Chris. I want to talk to us, Noni. Noni, there's an event that is happening.
First screening of Tin Soldiers in Alex. We'll be screening at 12 o'clock, midday, sharp. So we're inviting everyone, community. We also have Dr. Chris and Tozi himself, so they'll be able to see and meet Umdu who suffers from this condition. It's free of charge. We'll be serving some popcorn and having fun and learning together.
I have no idea what to expect, to be honest. How they'll receive it, what they'll think of us coming to tell them about something as unusual as this.
There are stigmas. We as Black people, we always attach the condition with a person as if that person is bewitched.
Can play a role, can play soccer ball.
She used to play with the other children, and I was very worried. She can fall, she can get hurt, but you tell her, don't jump too much, don't run too much. She couldn't care less about that. She will do whatever she wants to do.
How do you get affected by this FOP?
That message for what cell this cell must become is written inside the DNA. And the DNA is made up of some letters. Who wants to guess how many letters? How many letters are there in the DNA?
3.
3. No, way more than 3. How many? 20, 30, 40, 50. 6 billion is correct. So there are 6 billion letters in the DNA. And if one of those letters is wrong, just one, then you can get FOP.
It's a great question.
That is another wonderful question, and it's a difficult one for me to answer, but it's very important that if someone with FOP goes to their ancestral home and there's a spiritual person who wants, or a healer who wants to help them, I think there could be many, many good things coming from that. The person doing the healing must know that they shouldn't cut into the bone of FOP. So that person would be welcome to phone me.
Sometimes when we don't understand something, we give it a name, right? We say, this person must have bad spirits in their family, or, they must be cursed, or, all those things. The one thing that you should always do, even if you do pray over someone, or even if you do take them to someone who's going to heal them with water, the one thing that we need to refer people with FOP to is the doctors. So trying to help someone sometimes with what is not medical and studied can hurt the person, right? So you don't want to hurt someone by pulling them or, cutting into them to see what is growing under their skin. Take them to someone who's educated and has learned about the condition. In our communities, and anything that is strange that you can't name, the first thing that you want to link it to is, some dark magic, So you're afraid of it. It's a fear that's most of the time is not even valid because you just don't have the information.
I hadn't really thought about if someone probably has got FOP, that they would probably be shut away, so you wouldn't even see them necessarily in the street or like, yeah.
And it's hard for people to imagine what life is really like. It's hard for me to imagine it properly, to be honest.
Word of mouth, getting it out there. And I think the thing is, when you learn about FOP, you can't help but be impacted. You go away and it sticks with you.
You know, we need to still work on awareness and increase that. As that increases, the likelihood of it spreading further afield increases as well. So, yeah, none of us are done yet.
Et c'est une nécessité presque vitale en fait de se regrouper au-delà des frontières nationales, au-delà des barrières du langage, pour vraiment créer une communauté forte à travers le monde.
We want to find as many people as possible all over the world who have FOP, knowing that you have brothers and sisters and family members, but you don't know where they are. And that's the way we feel in the FOP community. We want to find everybody because we want this family to be whole, we want this family to be together, and we don't want anybody with FOP anywhere in the world to suffer in isolation.
La FOP est une maladie assez compliquée, bien évidemment, mais paradoxalement, elle est aussi très simple à diagnostiquer. La malformation à la naissance des 2 orteils, avec beaucoup de docteurs, j'ai toujours dit il n'est pas normal que tous les patients, notamment dans un pays comme la France, ne soient pas diagnostiqués, parce qu'en fait, c'est juste un problème d'information.
It seems like an impossible task to have the goal to go search for every person with FOP on the globe. I just believe it's doable.
Just the way it is, it'll be hit and miss. But if you don't do it, it's a guaranteed miss. So why not try?
It feels like we're now rolling little pebbles and hoping for them to pick up, and who knows, maybe someone picks up the baton and talks to their family and it starts a chain reaction. I guess that's what we're hoping for.
Yes.
This is unbearable, you know, especially for people like myself. The bathroom should be made closer to my house so that I can minimize any injury when I'm walking this distance.
We are on the search to find abantu abanayo, to link them to usizo. We're here to tell you today ukuthi it's not contagious. Awuyitholi ngoba ungane womuntu one-FOP. Abekho bewitched. Like they said, they've only found a few people in Africa, but bakhona, we just don't know where they are. These t-shirts are posters, basically. It's not just ubuso bomntu noma a cute t-shirt. It's information. It shows you signs of on FOP.
So I want to find out if is it that painful?
I-painful nyani xa seyidevelopha apha kwemzimbeni. Yabo, yenzeke njalo nalapha kum apha emzimbeni, umzimba lo wonke. And then nalapha enyaweni. Yes, Doc, I think I will give an opportunity to take one shoe so that they can see. Yes, this one, yeah.
Okay, so Buthozi uzanibonisa uba how inyawo lomuntu linjani xa ene-FOP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Odette can move this toe. She can move this bone. You see, she's got a joint there. So the toe goes out, but also the joint in the middle is missing. Short bone. There's no joint.
The light, like I said, is this. This is the gospel, and we're going to pass it along to make sure that abantu like Butozi who are in Alex don't feel alone. They know where to go, right?
I did put myself in his shoes, and I think this t-shirt, it will help me a lot to bring the awareness in the township.
Who knows how a word may spread from one community to another, from one small hamlet around the world to another. And I think that's how it's going to happen, one person at a time.
We're coming with hope.
My hope is that people learn from it and learn that life's gonna be okay.
Eu penso assim, que Deus tem propósito na nossa vida, né? Eu vim aqui para superar, né? Então eu nunca desisti, eu sempre lutei pelas minhas coisas, minha mãe sempre me criou desse jeito, né? De eu batalhar pelas coisas.
There's a tremendous resilience of spirit that says, I may have one of the rarest conditions known to mankind, but I'm going to prevail.
You know, FOP is part of what I am, it's not part of who I am.
And what was the best thing about being 6?
Being younger than kids.
It is part of me, I am not part of it.
He is absolutely resilient. Every day and everything that he does. And he's taught us so much. Just about life and every accomplishment and just being happy in sad times.
Isla's dad and I split up when she was about a year old. So I was dealing with her having FOP, having actually a lot of flare-ups and what have you, but also being a single mum. And then in 2018, this amazing man came into my life and I absolutely believe it was meant to be. Isla's sister arrived just a few months ago. Just health is wealth. And if we could just fix the health piece, we have the perfect family.
Go on, Isla! Concentrate! Concentrate! Yay!
Ele me dá orgulho em tudo que ele faz. Tudo que ele faz, ele me dá orgulho. Só de eu ter ele, eu já tenho o maior orgulho.